I'm going to start explaining some stuff after I show you this. This is purely to explain how I got to the center so easily. So once you get inside, this is the fourth faction. The Atlas race exists, and every time you come in here, that giant ball can procedurally generate as another random variant. That screenshot I showed you, that was the joking Death Stranding ripoff, was actually when I came in one of these, it was just sitting right there as the Atlas for this particular, whatever. Now, when you come into one of these, there's going to be balls everywhere that you can go and you can pick up. And these actually teach you words if you run over them. So you can pop over here and, this and that. There's a whole bunch of these, and it actually takes you a frustratingly long time to run around and grab all those, and we won't worry about that right now. Now, another cool thing when you come in here is as you cross these circles right here, these are going to upgrade your suit. But you'll notice when I cross this, we're going to get an error message. Now, the reason for that is because once you have all the possible upgrades for your suit, which I have, the modules, I have the individual element defenses, all the stuff that you see built. Once you have everything, this starts erroring you, and it just starts saying, nope, sorry, you can't do it. So that's how you know that you've reached their maximum recipes. Now, I've had this happen for my multi-tool, my ship, and my suit, and we'll talk about that later, but that's it. Now, here's the thing. When you walk into one of these, you see these two black balls right here? Check this out. That's fuel, and that's fuel. It's that simple. And then when you come walking up to this thing and you talk to it, it's going to give you a message. Now, you have ranks in this game based on your accolades, which if you haven't seen, I'll show you in a second. I should have showed you that first. But when you talk to this sucker, it gives you a little piece of lore. And as you progress through the game, it's kind of neat. They talk a lot about how they created the galaxy. They talk about how you, as a traveler, are a major part of the galaxy. You're a big part of the universe in the lore of this game. And when you accept it every single time, accept the power of the Atlas, it flows through me. He said, I already have the blueprint, but then look at this. Atlas Stone given. So that's it. That's how you do it. You come to one of these Atlas stations, you get 2 free fuel, you talk to the big ball, it gives you free Atlas Stone, and that Atlas Stone sells for a ton of money. So what I did, once I get out into space, I'll show you. If I can get in my ship. So the basic thing is black holes are in the game, as you saw. And I can't actually use a black hole right now. So I'll teach you that in a second. And this is actually a game-breaking bug, so pay close attention, okay? Once you're in space, there are black holes. Now, if you highlight this, it tells you are 1128.7 light years from the center. Now, if I find a black hole, I don't know. It could be anywhere. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can fly to any one of these planets. Here's one. So here's a black hole. Now, if I flew to this and I punched through the black... That's not a black hole. Where the hell to go? Wait, yes, it is a black hole. What am I doing? Black hole, yeah. So if I flew to the black hole, what black holes are is they're glorified warp jumps. Every time you go through one, it jumps you something like 700 light years towards the center. And the reason it was so easy to get to the center is I literally would just jump to an Atlas station, grab the 2 free warp fuels, then jump to a black hole, jump about 700 meters towards the center, and then I was that much closer. And then when I landed, I would just look for another Atlas station, grab 2 more warp fuels, rinse, repeat, go to the black hole, and that was all it took. And because they give you so much free fuel, and because I could easily find enough of these within proximity that I could go from one to the other, it's a really simple process if you want to get to the center. Now, as you saw with the Atlas station, there is no way that is an exploit. That is clearly by design. Those were not happenstance in being there. They want you to give the Atlas stones. They want you to... 7 meters, sorry. I'm not paying attention, honestly. I'm trying to focus on the bigger picture, the little things. Light years, you know what I meant, light years. Anyhow, sorry. It's clearly something that they've decided to do, and it's, just a design decision, I think. And I don't really care about the jumping of the distance. The thing about the Atlas stones is it kind of bothers me that they sell for so much because it jeopardizes the trade market, which I think is an important part of the game. So that's that. That's all it was to it. That's how you do it. You jump to these Atlas stations, and then you jump to the black hole, and that's how you get to the middle. So it's not an exploit. It's not a bug. Now you understand how it works completely, and let's hope they fix it. Now, while I finish my review of the game, I'm going to jump to this planet because it looks really cool. We're going to explore a random planet. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little excited that's a water planet. And now I'm going to try to actually explain how I feel about the game. Now, one of the biggest reasons I've been a little reluctant to try to explain the game in a review sense is because my fear is people are going to overreact to my general feel of how this game... Oh, this planet looks awesome. There's a lot of water here. Maybe we can find a big shark. But I think this game is going to surprise people in that... Oh, wow, and it's plants too. It's not exactly the game a lot of us thought it was going to be. And when I say that, what I mean by that is, coming into it, we knew the game was a planet exploration sim. And we also knew that it was a trade simulator, and that it had space combat, and that there was ground combat, and all this other stuff. And I think a lot of us started getting delusions of grandeur and thinking that the game was going to be super fleshed out in every single one of those areas. That we were going to have this really complex Half-Life type shooter mixed with like an Elite Dangerous space combat, also mixed with a planet simulator and all this other fancy stuff combined. And the reason I say the expectations are going to be mixed is because it's not that kind of game. The main focus is on the planet exploration. And the reason I think this game succeeds, and the reason I think a lot of people are going to like this game, is because this is what Sean promised us. This is the game he was always trying to make. He wasn't trying to make Half-Life and a shooter. He wasn't trying to make an intense space combat. He was trying to make a game where you visit planets, you see a lot of cool stuff that you're never going to see anywhere else, and you find a lot of, plants and animals and stuff. And that's the important part to me. And I think, hold on. And I think that this is the important focus. And no matter what other people may say, no matter complaints people are going to have about the combat or any other, the trade or anything else, it doesn't matter. Because those things aren't what the game is supposed to be. And that's why reviewing this is so difficult for me. Because there are things I don't like, there are things I like, but at the end of the day, when I say to myself, what is this game supposed to be? This, what I'm looking at right here, this is what the game is supposed to be. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And the game succeeds on this level. This is exactly what we wanted, this is what we were promised, and this is what it is. So if you're looking for an intense shooter, if you're looking for a complex space fighter game, this is not going to be your game. This is exactly what it was always meant to be. And I just think that I got lost in the possibilities of what that could be. I think thinking too much and too into it and kind of getting, into the idea of, oh, this is going to be so crazy. There's going to be all this fighting and these space dog fights and all this other stuff. Like, when you really think about what they showed us in the game, they never actually showed us that. They showed us exactly what the game has, but it was always bits and pieces and demos, and we kind of just added our own fantasies onto it. And I think that's why the hype train kind of got out of control. But we're going to go to the bottom of the ocean right now. So if people ask me, what do I rate this game? That's a loaded question. You can't just rate this game with the typical rating. I mean, websites are going to, they're going to try to put a score on this game. And I think that's really difficult to do because I think this is the kind of game that is dependent on who's playing it. And it's going to be a lot of different opinions for a lot of different people. Wow. Well, not much in the way of life here, but... So if I had to rate the combat and the space combat and stuff like that, yeah, probably wouldn't be a very high rating. But if I had to rate the planet exploration and the procedural and the sense of atmosphere and immersion, it would be pretty high. It would probably be like a 9 or a 9.5. And the only reason I don't, immediately shotgun give the other areas of the game a higher rating is because I really feel like we're not playing the finished version. I feel like they're going to patch in a better version with some fixes, and I can't really appropriately grade all those other areas until I've seen the final copy or whatever it is they have planned, because there are areas of this game that don't necessarily feel complete, and I think that is a large part of why the review copies didn't go out. But yeah, there is no life in this ocean whatsoever, huh? Well, so much for that. But, so yeah, I don't know. I really feel that my nitpicks and my talking about bugs and, things about that, That was because I had moved on from the realization that I enjoyed the game. I wasn't thinking about that anymore. I was moving on to the things that I wanted to see them improve to make the game, perfect and better and so on and so forth. And I realized it was difficult for me to have a conversation with the general public talking about those things because they're not on that page yet. They're still in the honeymoon phase of like, this game's beautiful, it's exploring, I love it. You're not hands-on dealing with some of the bugs and some of the problems, and because of that, you're not experiencing the same state of how can this game become the best game that it can be that I've been experiencing in like my last 10 hours of play or what have you. So as far as the review goes, that's going to be probably the most I can say without talking about things that don't matter because they don't exist in the game yet in terms of bug fixes and what have you. Yeah, there's got to be some life here somewhere. I'm going to go look around. First, I'm going to go on my ship